What's up everyone, Bradley Jack Design here with another design breakdown. This time, since it's November 1st, we're going to take a look at this Halloween Bears graphic I created. This was just something I wanted to challenge myself to make, and this was the result. Pretty great. It's one of the cooler things I've made. I was inspired by a design by Johnny. He created something for Sunday Night Football that had a dark stadium with this cool lighting on the inside. So that was a big inspiration for what I wanted to do here. Everything else, I just wanted to make something spooky, and this is pretty spooky. So this is the final. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that, and I'm going to show you how I built this from the ground up. Let me just move that mic real quick. Okay. So it all starts with the stadium photo. So let me find that stadium photo actually. So here's the original stadium photo. So I took this, clipped out the background. The original photo was real short, so it didn't actually have a sky in it. I then made some tweaks to it. So this is the edited version of it. I basically went in and added some ghosts here, some spooky guys here, and then some colorful words in some areas that we don't have to talk about. So I got that there. So this is the basis. So we started with this here. I do have on here a couple things. I did some basic camera raw to it to sharpen it up a bit, add a little bit of contrast. I have a high pass on it as well, I guess, to sharpen it up. And then I have a blur gallery. I think it's a tilt shift blur. We can open it and check. We'll open this up. Oh, so it's a field blur. So I have a couple field blurs up here in the background and in the foreground here. Probably could have used a tilt shift blur. Pretty much did the same thing. So then I have a copy of that. So I have a copy of this on top. This was the original, I believe, and then I duplicated it because I think I moved everything up. So I just wanted it to repeat down here at the bottom. And all this gets blurred out, so it looks bad now, but it is all going to get blurred out in the end, and it's not really going to matter. So we've got that there. Let's see, what else do we want to do? So with this, I wanted to create a dark, ominous sky. So I put a dark color in the background. I found this photo of some sky that I flipped around and mirrored. And I applied a gradient map to both of these of this green color. So this green is going to be sort of the... I thought I made it green. Oh, hold on. I made it black and white, and then I think I have another. So I have a color balance layer that's going to turn it green. So this green is going to be the contrasting color to the orange that we have in the, what are they? Smoke. The smoke coming up. So I'll turn the color balance off now. So in the background, I did have this green color and a couple other layers on here that we can't see. This is pretty much lightening things up a little bit. And then I actually have an exposure to darken everything all at once. And then this layer is nothing, so we'll delete that. I've got a moon. Put the moon up there, duplicated it, set it to screen, Gaussian blurred it, duplicated it again, set it to screen with an even more blur. So this is a blur of 15. This other one is a blur of 3. So I blurred it, screen, blurred it more. Color balance on top of it. Here we have our sky and moon that we have in the background. So we have that background with this green spooky sky. So then we need to make edits to the stadium and foreground of everything in front of it. So basically, like, this background is blue, so we need to fix that. So I've got on here curves. Got a curves layer to darken this up because if there's light shining from the back, it's going to be darker in the front. Let's see, we got a color lookup. The color lookup is probably drop blues. Yeah, to desaturate it a lot. And then I've got an exposure layer to darken it even more. Then I have a curves layer to darken up in front here. So at some point in time, I add this big harsh moonlight. I'll add it actually right now. And I'll show you why I put stuff where I put it. So for the moonlight, I've got this layer that's darkening up the outer edges here and one that's lightening up the inside. So we have this harsh moonlight coming at this angle. So to accentuate that, I darkened up everything that wouldn't be touched by this moonlight, hypothetically. So the front of Soldier Field, underneath here in this alcove, and then over here as well. And then I lightened up areas that would get hit by it. So the top here, the top, basically the top of the building, and everything in the back. Back here, looked a little funky because it was gray, so I made it blend in more, adding that same green color to the back so it blended in. And then I have a curves layer that is masked to just like 1 or 2 pixels in here using the reverse curves technique you might have seen me use before. Feathered a bit as well. And then have a color balance layer, which is going to turn everything green. It's that same color balance. So I added this to make things more green, more natural for this stadium. And that does it pretty much for the background. Now some other stuff we did to the stadium, but we'll hop back to that a little bit later. Let's see what we want to add next. So this is fog. So I've got some fog here. So I have some fog in the background, and I have some fog in the foreground. And this I added an orange gradient map to. So this orange gradient map is going to emulate the smoke that we have. And it does look like a lot now, but it gets darkened up a lot with some of these layers up here. I want to see what some of these other layers are. Like I have this layer here. Okay, so this layer here is darkening up even more. Let me turn off the fog so we can see what we're doing. So on the front, this is accentuating some of the dark areas, and actually what it's doing, yeah, it's just darkening up more. Let's see what these are. These are the lights. So these are the lights inside the stadium. So it started off with just this shape. I'll zoom in so we can take a look. So this is just a shape. I probably just used the pen tool and drew a quick shape like this, blurred it, followed wherever the lines or wherever the lights were. Let me turn this Gaussian blur back on. Slightly blurred it. I don't know, it's probably 3-point blur. Then I duplicated that with a bigger blur set to normal, and then I duplicated that with an even bigger blur. This is 15 to emulate what lights would look like. I then have a curves layer that I added on top of it, and I painted inside the areas that would get hit by this light inside the stadium. And I tried to paint in areas around here, but not on top of like the top here because it wouldn't be touched. So that's what one of these, yeah, that's what this mask is on the left light. So it doesn't touch the top areas that wouldn't have that affected. So that's the light on the left. I then have the light on the right. So this is, let me disable this layer mask. So this is what the shape looked like. So went around the height, from this height to this height, moved it around, masked out the areas that it shouldn't touch, aka the outside of the building. And then I did the same thing. So Gaussian blur, another Gaussian blur, and then that even more Gaussian blurred, and then another curves layer. Just set the darkness all the way up and painted on the inside to where it would be hitting on the inside of the stadium. Now it's not, we can't see what it's hitting like we can here where it would be hitting all the seats. They're all hidden because they're underneath this. So those are the lights there. We'll toss our fog back up. This is our composition right now. I then have an exposure. Let's set this back down to 0. This is an exposure layer set to -1.5. And pretty much what this is going to do, it's going to darken up a lot of the area around the stadium. And then this is going to accentuate that more. It's pretty much just going to do it in several steps is what this is doing. Then we have a hue and saturation layer here, which is desaturating a lot of everything outside the stadium. So the orange was obviously way too harsh to begin with. This is toning it down. So, you know, it looked like this. We wanted to darken up the outside. And this is pretty much just adding contrast, making sure the inside is where the focus is. That's where all the light is hitting. So we got our moonlight, we got our fog. We have our stadium. Now we're going to add the smoke. So the smoke I added in several different steps. And a lot of these things I got from Envato. which is great because they had 3D elements of smoke swirls, you know, swirls like this. Let me just hop into one of these. So, you know, just like, oops. You know, like this is just a big swirly thing of smoke. Turn the background on, just looks like that. It's exactly what I was looking for, which is something great that they have available for their users to use at any time they want. And if you're interested in using Envato, you can check out the link in my description. You can take a look and sign up on there. But it's a pretty great product website to use. So then I've got a tornado. Again, got that from Envato. So I've got a tornado with these 2 smoke swirls. And then I have those set with a gradient map on top of it to turn them orange. And that is the same orange that we used back here. Big orange swirl. So with that orange swirl, I wanted the inside of the stadium to reflect some of that. So that's what these layers are here. So it's just a layer set to overlay and one set to screen. They're the same layer, but it's pretty much just giving this sort of reflection or coloring of orange, as if the atmosphere inside the stadium had a bunch of this dust in it. Because if the dust is orange and it's everywhere, it's going to have that same atmosphere. And then played around, threw in a couple more of these layers with the same gradient map. These are just different smoke layers. Played around with how dark they are. And some of this might have been done after I added the bear to it, just positioning wise, but this is where they ended up. Let's see what we have here now. So I've got some more. These are some frames I think I got from maybe Footage Crate. These all have the same gradient map applied to it as well, just to add more smoke. Pretty much it's just a bunch of smoke. Then I've got several layers here to adjust the lighting, because this is a solid object. You know, you can't see through it. So there's going to be some darkening I need to do, some lightening with a curves layer. I did a selective color layer to deepen that color, because once I brightened it, you can see it desaturated it a bit. So this is going to add some color back. And then a curves layer to lighten up certain parts. Now this layer here, I believe, is lightening up areas where I put lightning. So I'm going to hold off on that until we put the lightning in, which we can do now. So I've got 2 groups of lightning. I've got lightning behind, which this is actually not behind it anymore. It's on top. And all the lightning I switched to be black and white. And the lightning I downloaded from a website called Footage Crate, except for this piece of lightning I found. I think I just got that on Unsplash. So I wanted something coming from the top to sort of pair the top to the bottom, glue it all together. So I've got this lightning there. Got some back lightning. Let's find the other lightning. Nope, those are ghosts. These are lightning. So I've got several lightning bolts. Some of them I puppet warped. Some of them I just threw on here. And these all have gradient maps that are just making them black and white, because I decided that I didn't want them to be blue. And some of these actually originated to be yellow or orange, so then I tweaked them a little bit, got rid of the fogginess, added a white gradient map to it, masked it to certain areas. I masked it to the shape of this bear. So let's toss that on there. So here's this bear. Looks like that. Made some tweaks to it and added edits to it. Made it look like this. Colored in its eye. I did that. I just found like a white contact online. And I think, is this? Yeah, there's like this random dot over here I didn't see before, so we'll get rid of that. But I just masked this to where this lightning bolt is. Shaping around, I wanted it to look like this lightning was shaping around it. That's why I masked it out up here and had it end up here. Lightning behind the bear up here, and then lightning coming up. And this lightning coming up is where we have this other curves layer that's just brightening up that area there, because that area would technically be brighter with the light source directly there. And as you can see, I have a bunch of layers on the bear here. So with that, we've got a layer to make it more orange down here at the bottom. I've got an exposure layer that is going to darken up most of it. I have a curves layer that's going to brighten up towards the bottom. A highlight area that's going to lighten up on the top. Low lights from that top light, and this is, again, coming from this light source in the top right. and then have a couple layers set to color at 30% and color at 50%, where I'm just adding a little bit of coldness back to the top here because this is a colder light that's hitting it. I then have that same color balance layer applied to the top of it as well. And then I have a gradient map just to hit around the eye so this color balance doesn't really do anything, so the eye is still pure white. And then I have a curves layer going around it to accentuate the lighting of the lightning bolts moving around the bear. So that's fun. So then I felt this needed a little bit more. So let me hit this layer real quick. Okay. So I thought it needed more, so I got some screenshots from a video I downloaded from Footage Crate with these like ghosts, like these demon faces and these like spooky ghosts. And this one we couldn't see very well, so I added a little bit of a dark area behind it, like that, so it's can be seen a little bit better, more as a solid object than a just screened item. And these all have some levels layers adjusted to them to either make them darker or brighter. And then gradient maps to make the green ghosts back to white as well. So let's see, what do we have now? That's most of the composition. So this is what we're looking at right now. So after that, let's see what we have. I've got some more lightning down here that I masked to the inside of the stadium. And I think I have them duplicated a couple times and set to screen so they accentuate it a little bit more. Has some Gaussian blurs on these to add a little bit of a glow, and then set that again to black and white with a gradient map. I then have this texture on the front. So I've got this texture here that's kind of spooky that I have a gradient map applied to it to make it a little bit orange. Adds just a little bit of front texture to it. And this is just actually a marble texture. So I found last year that if you create a marble texture or have a marble texture and invert it, it gives you these really nice, spooky, ominous sort of dust flying. So it looks kind of cool. Then I have a lens object, bottom left-hand corner to end where the light is hitting. So opposite of where the light effect is or where your light source is, I've got this rainbow. And I have a levels layer on top of that. And you can barely see it, but it's there. I then have this layer, which is nothing as it seems. That's fun. And then threw a trusty lens dirt on the front with a little bit of a gradient map to make it orange, as you can see here. Adds a little bit of orange to some of the other areas. Again, just giving it some ambiance, some ambient contrast. I then have a bunch of color lookups and a selective color layer. So let's see what these are. So I've got Foggy Night, because this is a foggy, mystery, scary thing. So I threw a Foggy Night overlay set to 20%. That pretty much just adds a lot of contrast because it's set to overlay. I have Horror Blue set to 20%. That's just going to make things a little bit blue, a little bit colder, a little spookier. This next layer I've set to 56%, which is Candlelight, which is going to add some warmth back into it. Okay. Then I have one of Ethan J. Design's overlays, number 17 specifically. And I have that set to full. So that is going to counteract a lot of the overlays I already did and make it blue and orange, which is very Chicago Bears, which is great. And then this is going to dye down some of the red and make it more orange. So it's sort of, I'm adding cyan to the reds. Did I do anything to the yellows? Yeah. So I'm essentially desaturating the yellows and desaturating the reds. Then I have some text going down here at the bottom. I have Fright Night with a Gaussian blur on it. This is the original text. So it just has a stroke and an inner glow. So it's basically just text with yellow to orange. And then the opposite stroke. So if I get rid of the inner glow, let's see if we can see it. So yellow's at the bottom, orange is at the top. Then I have an inner glow set to it, duplicated it, set it to Gaussian blur, so it's in the background, and then I duplicated it, set it to overlay at 20%, which is barely doing anything at all, and I can't even discern what it's doing from here. I then added 2 of those lightning effects, just to have them curving around, and then I have some white screened on top of the text, masks to the text set to 50%. So it just adds a little bit of brightness to that. If we get rid of the lightning here, you can see just coming across here, just a little bit of white added to that. I then took these effects, tossed it in camera raw. So I made everything into one visible layer, tossed it into camera raw. So this was before, this is after. So let's see what we did in here, because that's a pretty drastic change. Added contrast, took down some highlights, played with the shadows, blacks. Basically added a little bit of minor effects, but the main thing I did was I color graded it. So the midtones and the shadows I made more blue, and the highlights I made more orange. And that's going to deepen these colors and give these color effects. I think I then took that exact same layer, Gaussian blurred it, and set it to screen, and then basically inverted a mask on top of it to pick and point areas I wanted to brighten up. So basically I just took a really soft brush at a very low opacity and just hit some of these areas I wanted to brighten up. I then took that, combined it all together, and then I have a camera raw layer here. And this camera raw layer actually is only showing the red and blue channels. So it's adding a little bit of purple to everything, which I can see on my screen, and you can barely see it. Basically, when I turn it on, a lot of the whites are turned a little bit yellow because there is, I feel like what I'm about to say is not going to make any sense. So I took away the green, so it's purple. So we're masking out purple. I don't know. It looks like this. I thought it looked cool, so I added it. I then took all of that, combined it together into one layer, did some more camera raw. Actually, it's the same camera raw, but I added a radial blur to this, which is shooting outwards. And I used the same thing, took away the green layer, the green channel. Then it adds this effect down here at the bottom, because it's masked to everywhere except for the corner. So if I turn it on, you can see it's just adding this cool ghosting effect of green and purple, like a lens correction. It's up here. You can see it on the moon. Nothing green and blue or green and purple spooky effect. The radial blur, I think, is just like set to 10 coming out from the center. Nothing too dangerous or difficult to understand. I then have a couple dust layers that I used, tossed on top with a couple levels layers to get rid of some of the fogginess. And then just a couple layers, one more selective color layer, which is really deepening the blues. So I went to the cyans, played around with some. Did I tweak the blues the same? No, so it's just the cyan. So a lot of this back here and a lot of the blue you see is cyan. So basically I deepened that up, added a lot of blue and black, took away some yellow to saturate it a little bit more, make it a little bit more pure blue. And then I added one more final color lookup of Ethan J Design Teal plus Orange 2. This is set to 50%, which really accentuates and adds a lot of contrast and really bolds up those blues, really bolds up those orange, because I'm assuming it's teal and orange. You're adding contrast, you're adding teal, you're adding orange, which is great for this because I have a lot of teal and I have a lot of orange. So that is the final design. All in all, this was really fun to make. I've discovered Halloween stuff is really fun to make, so that's why I made a couple Halloween designs. But Halloween designs basically just give you an avenue to create dark compositions with a lot of lighting, and it allows you to play around with lighting effects, make something darker. And this was fun because I basically turned this day photo into a night photo, as you can see here. A lot of contrast with the light here, lighting effects from up here, lighting effects with here. Just experimentation with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me. If you guys want to join my Discord, I do have a Discord community you guys can join. I'm in there often chatting with people, getting suggestions for videos like this from you guys in there. That's free to join, so go ahead. That's in the description below as well. But other than that, hope you guys had a great Halloween, and hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving and the rest of the holiday season. And I am back to my regular scheduled programming, Tuesdays at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So I'll see you then. I'll see you next Tuesday. You guys have a great day.